The 1966 American spy-fi comedy film Our Man Flint was a film that actually parodies the James Bond films that were so popular during this time. The screenplay was written by Hal Femberg and Ben Starr, and the movie was directed by Daniel Mann. And it starred James Coburn as the master spy, Derek Flint. The main premise of the film is that a trio of mad scientists attempt to blackmail the world with a weather control machine. There was also a sequel to this film 1 year later, and the title of that was called In Like Flint, and it had James Coburn reprising his existing role. Now, the basis of the story is when a global criminal organization flexes its power over weather and tectonic activity, secret agent Derek Flint, played by James Coburn, is actually summoned from retirement to get to the bottom of the matter. While he mulls over whether or not he wants to take this assignment, he narrowly escapes an assassination attempt. But his spy agency commander, Cramden, played by Lee J. Cobb, is nearly mortally wounded. Vowing to take the fight to the enemy, Flint treks through Europe, hot on the trail of a femme fatale spy, Gila, played by Gila Golan. The film was released the same year as Star Trek, the original series, in 1966. While there is really no known connection, at one point Flint uses a move identical to the Vulcan neck pinch to render an adversary unconscious. Now, the agent 0008 is there because there's an intentional resemblance to Sean Connery, Agent 007, and at one point he actually uses Connery's mild Scottish accent. Naturally, being the superior agent, Flint kicks 0008's tail. Now, the organization that chooses Flint for this mission uses the name of Zoe, and that's an acronym for the Zonal Organization World Intelligence Espionage. The full name for this is written on the main desk. The odd guitar melody played throughout the movie, which is used almost note for note 14 years later by an up-and-coming band, is a testament to the enduring quality of the composer's music. The band, Wall of Voodoo, best known for its early 1980s hit called Mexican Radio, uses that strange note progression in its updated remake of the Johnny Cash hit Ring of Fire. Their version, however, is a 5-minute long experiment in what would later be termed as techno music. Its mechanically programmed background rhythm paved the way for later bands, but its use of the riff from this film performed nearly musically verbatim that makes this version so intriguing. And it's interesting to note that James Brolin actually appears uncredited in this film as a technician in the background on the villain's submarine. The first time this happens is just for 7 seconds, only 50 seconds into the movie. He appears again at around an hour and 5 minutes into the film. Now, when Flint relaxes and he suspends his body, supported only by 2 chairs, one under his head and one under his heels, the rest of his body has no support. This is not a special effects shot that was done. James Coburn was able to do this stunt, so it was actually incorporated into the script once they found out he could do it. Now, the safe door locking bars, which Flint easily melts during the movie, were actually cast from a product called Woods metal, which is an alloy that has a melting point that's only 200 degrees. So it can basically be melted with boiling water. Now, this film could have ended up being slightly different because originally they wanted Raquel Welch to play the role Gila plays in the film. I'm not really sure why they were unable to sign Raquel. I think it was probably because she was doing another project and was tied up at the time. Now, the establishing shots used to show where Derek Flint lives is actually in the San Remo apartments in New York City, and that's 145 and 146 Central Park West. That's kind of funny to notice some of the oddities in this movie. If you'll remember where the girl is kidnapped from the shower, if you'll look to the left, instead of there being towels that say his and hers, there are two towels that just say hers on them. Now, Hans Gruber drops his monocle into the bowl of bouillabaisse when Gillis shows up at his table in the nightclub. It actually remains there for much of the conversation. Now, when the computers analyze the requirements for an agent to solve the crisis, the end result is simply a blank punch card that has Derek Flint's name typed on it, but has no holes punched in it, rendering it useless for input or output. This one flaw mars a sequence that was otherwise remarkably undumbed down for a popular movie of the era. It's interesting to note that after Cramden asked the world representatives to write down their specifications for the perfect agent, it would not have been surprising to see him feeding a sheet of paper with their handwritten instructions into the slot of a prop computer. Instead, the film shows the information being punched into cards with real key punches. Then the cards put into stacks and loaded into the real card hoppers. Now, this is where the phrase loading data came from, and this led to the computers being able to process the inputted data. This was state-of-the-art data processing in 1965. Now, the insignia on the buildings of Galaxy Island, as well as the patch on the henchmen or the workers' shirts, is the same emblem or insignia used by the spacecraft Spindrift in the TV series Land of the Giants from 1968. The captain and the co-pilot have that same emblem on their uniforms. And also, the same control panel props were seen in the Land of Giants too. They reused a lot of props in this day. It was kind of commonplace for things to get just worn out with repetitious use. In some cases, they would slightly modify it. In other cases, they didn't modify it at all. They just stuck it in there like it was used in another series. Another example of this is the dock at Galaxy Island, and the submarine decks are the same ones used as the Nelson Institute in the TV show Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Now, Flint's girl Anna is actually played by Sigrid Baldas. I hope I'm saying that name right. I'm probably not. But she might be familiar to you if you're a fan of Hogan's Heroes. She was the camp secretary in Hogan's Heroes, and she was also the real-life wife of Bob Crane. Now, the uncredited actor playing the overseer of the pleasure unit process is Dick Wilson, who later gained fame as Mr. Whipple in the long string of commercials for Charmin toilet paper. Now, after this film, James Coburn ended up developing rheumatoid arthritis, and he appeared in very few films during the 1980s. He actually got diagnosed with the disease in the 70s, and he still continued to try to work, but his level as a star was declining. This disease had left his body deformed and in pain. He basically stated that he really started turning into stone. His hands were really twisted because his tendons had shortened, and for a long period of time, he was just miserable and unable to work much. He tried conventional and unconventional treatments, and none of them worked. Then at age 68, he tried something called MSM, I guess it's a sulfur compound that's available at most health food stores. He said the result was nothing less than miraculous. He said, "I can't believe it. I went from being in pain daily to being able to resume my career." Coburn ended up dying of a heart attack at the age of 74, November 18th, 2002. And all this happened while he was listening to music at his Beverly Hills home. Thank you, James Coburn, for the excellent job you did portraying the lovable Derek Flint. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.